continuing with the previous video, I don't know if you guys saw it. It was basically just a quick short summary of me playing soccer and football for like rec leagues. I didn't play them for schools back in my early days when I was like 6, 7, like 8, 9. Getting into like middle school football, getting covered a little bit because I was smaller. I just wasn't very confrontational when I was younger. Get a little bit older though. In 8th grade, I did track and field, and I did the 75-meter hurdles and I did the 150-meter hurdles, and I wanted to do the mile, but we had another kid who was a little bit better than the mile, better at the mile than me, so I ended up doing the 400-yard dash. So, you know, nothing too crazy. Enough time for if you have longer legs, you get an advantage, but unfortunately for me, I hadn't really hit a growth spurt yet, so I was at a large disadvantage in a lot of areas in that regard, but I didn't do terribly. A few times, you know, kids from the school went out and saw us, but it's hard to really discern when you've got two schools meeting up, who's cheering for who, especially when you're all doing stuff at the same time, and you're meeting on like a neutral kind of track and field, because it's middle school. We don't really have our own track and fields. We have to meet up at a high school track and field. So I didn't really get, you know, that second win that you get from cheers or looking up in the stands and seeing people look at you and whatnot. But it was still something fun, and then it just kind of goes to show my passion for like running and this, that, and the third. That was really nice. Because that's all that. If you pay attention to the sports that I've talked about, I played soccer and I played football. There is a lot of running when it comes to both of those sports, depending on your position. One of those years, I was corner and safety. I'm running a lot to keep up with those receivers. Soccer is literally a sprint back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, non-stop. So, track and field, just keeping in par for the course for running. Excuse me. Get into high school. We had a decision. So I had went to the orientation. I got to, you know, look at my classes, got all the hand flips for like, you know, this, that, and the third. And one of the papers they gave us was all of the sports that the high school offers. And you had, you know, the major ones, basketball, football, soccer, baseball, track and field, cheer. You had all the common stuff. Then there was some less common stuff, golf, bowling, I mean, I don't want to say tennis and, what's it called, volleyball are unpopular, but I feel like volleyball, I feel like I hear about a lot more these days than I used to do back then. But yeah, volleyball and tennis, I don't know, I didn't really hear a lot about them when I was in high school. But they also had wrestling, and that'll, you know, come until, you know, the conversation in a second. So, we're going through the packet, and Dad's asking me, like, what sport do I want to play when I get into high school? And he's like, do you want to do track and field again? Because I just did it last year, and I've been going with the trend of, you know, doing everything 2 years. I was like, no, there's a bunch of kids who are hitting their growth spurts. I haven't really hit mine. I don't have that long of legs. I'm going to be at a genetic disadvantage. Alright, cool. You want to do football? Same story. I'm going to be at a genetic disadvantage. I weigh like 100 pounds soaking wet. I'm going to get a concussion running into a fucking linebacker who is 180 pounds. It's not going to go well. So, it was like soccer. I was like, no, again, long legs. I'm going to be at a bit of a disadvantage, especially if I have to cover an entire goal, and I got to jump really high to get something put up at the top. It's not going to go well. Alright, well, what? I was like, well, I don't want to do swimming because I enjoy casual swimming. I don't want to do it professionally, and then every time I go to casual swim, I'm thinking about the professional shit. I don't want to do baseball. It just didn't really, you know, stick out to me as a sport that I wanted to play. Didn't want to do tennis or volleyball for that same reason. And then he pointed out wrestling. I was like, I don't know what that is. He was like, well, it's gonna be more fair to you than, you know, the other sports because you know, you're matched up against someone who weighs the exact same as you. Yeah, they might be a little bit taller, they might be a little shorter, but they weigh the same amount of poundage. I was like, alright, cool. I mean, fuck it. I guess I'll give it a shot. So I went to go wrestle my first year. And, I'm gonna have to be picky and choosy about what stories I tell now. My first year wrestling, I wasn't doing too hot, obviously. There's been some people who've been wrestling in elementary and middle school, which I didn't even know was a thing. Or as my coach used to say, wrestling out of the womb. And, that very first year wrestling, I wasn't doing too hot, and I'm observing other people wrestling. It's a Saturday tournament, so you're just kind of sitting in the stands until your name and your school gets called. So, what I saw at the Saturday tournament was, it was a kid, they were wrestling, two guys back and forth, and, one of them gets picked up and they get dropped, but they land on their arm the wrong way. They actually ended up dislocating their elbow. They had to get stretched out. And then the kid who broke the other kid's elbow goes back to the center and gets his hand raised because the other kid can no longer continue. And in my mind, that just kind of like, I knew this was a much more aggressive sport than football. I knew this was a, you know, a one-on-one kind of thing, this, that, and the third. I knew, like, the history, I kind of knew the history behind it and whatnot, but, it kind of registered in my head, like, if I have to go to that extreme, or something unfortunately happens like that, I don't want my hand raised. I don't want to ever have to go that far to get a victory in a wrestling match. It's not worth it. That kid's gonna have elbow issues for the rest of his life over a fucking high school wrestling match. It's not worth it. In my mind, it just didn't calculate as worth it. And you know, it's unfortunate. It's an accident. I pray to God the kid didn't hope to break his elbow. But, it's all just a part of the conversation, you know. It's a natural thing that just kind of sort of runs its course in the middle of a wrestling match. And, but it didn't calculate, like, in my head, I was weighing the pros and cons of it, and I was like, this isn't worth it. I'm way too empathetic. I'm going to be spending the next 20 years thinking about a kid's elbow that I broke if I were to unfortunately be on that end of that equation. And if I were to get my elbow broke every time I go to, you know, reach for a fucking glass and my fucking elbow tenses up, I'm gonna be thinking about that for the next fucking 60 years. Excuse me. So I didn't want to do it. I, you know, decided to back out, and I stated my reasons why, and I said I don't think it's worth it. I don't think, you know, this is what I want to do if it's gonna be, you know, like that. And Mama gave me, you know, another one of those, you know, important life lessons, you know, you get when you're growing up, and I respect the life lesson, but it was, you know, you don't want to start something and then not see it through. You know, that's not a good way to live life. It's not a good habit to form. So, you know, I finished it out, and once again, without going into too deep of details, I ended up doing it for a second and a third year. I didn't do it my senior year. Not that it would have mattered because COVID hit that year, so yeah. What else did I do in high school? I did robotics for 2 years, and that first robotics year was pretty crazy. I started out programming, but because of my summer job as a a press operator, but, you know, dabbling in, you know, wrench turning and machining and everything. I was actually really good in the engineering room, and I had, you know, the creative mind and go-getter attitude for marketing. So I actually would spend like half of my time in the computer lab on programming, and I would spend the other half on like designing pictures, doing color schemes, this, that, and the third. I would spend another half, another time during the week, putting buttons together to sell. We would host the events because our gym was a lot bigger and much more supportive for, you know, the event. So I would run concession stand. I would leave the concession stand occasionally to go get stuff, bring it back, sell buttons. I would bring stuff out to the people in the stands supporting the team when they went out. So, you know, they had stuff like wave, poppers, this, that, and the third, selling buttons in there. It was a very eventful year, and actually a lot of my efforts during that year, I don't want to put them entirely on, but I'm going to take a little bit of credit. A lot of my efforts that year actually allowed us to get the team spirit over. So that was pretty cool. And second year is when I decided to go full into engineering and robotics. And unfortunately, once again, you know, I fucking couldn't really finish it out due to COVID, not properly at least. But we did still get to do some events and other things, but my main thing was I was battery boss. I was in charge of charging batteries, managing which ones went out, which ones didn't, so the robot didn't die in the middle of an event. And I actually had like a critical idea that went on to the robot. I don't know if that robot is still in the, you know, robotics lab, you know, 6 years later now, maybe 7 or 8. Yeah, there's still a part of that robot that the idea came out of me. Because one of the events was you have to reach up above, like the robot has to reach up above itself, grab onto something, and then lift itself up off the ground. Didn't matter how high it got, it just could not be touching the ground in any way, shape, or form. And I was playing around with, like, they gave us Legos to like come up with different ideas and like how stuff would work, and then, you know, we could actually put that together on the robot. And came up with something. I couldn't quite figure out how to make it work exactly, but basically the idea was it was basically, what did I describe it, like a scissor lift, almost. I'll put a video of this. But, same concept of how it, like, lifts itself up and, like, contracts back down, to, like, extend up, grab something, and then, it would retract, but because it's grabbing something above it, it's actually going to pull the robot up. But I was like, well, the problem I have with this is, one, how I planned on doing it is, like, there would be a string that goes over it, and that's what, like, keeps it contracted. And then once you release that string, it shoots up and, you know, grabs the thing. My only thing was, one, I didn't know how to make it pull itself back in to lift it off the ground, and I didn't know, depending on how heavy the robot is, if it'd be able to support that weight that it's trying to lift up. But the actual, you know, the hive minds of the engineering room, the teachers and not custodians, but whatever they were, alumni that actually helped us out and whatnot. They actually made that idea a thing, and you know, that was pretty cool. I was the sergeant at arms, the second highest rank in the room that year, and yeah, it was pretty cool. I really enjoyed it. Wish we could have had more fun with it, but I don't know why, but that doesn't sound. I think what I did was, I think I did the first year of robotics in 10th grade, so along with my second grade. And then I did it with 11th grade, which was the year that I just got done telling. I don't think I could do anything COVID year. I could be again, this is like going on like 7-8 years ago, so my memory of it is shoddy, and also I don't like remembering back to there. But again, those are conversations.
Of all these games we can come up with, I think there are better ones. Sure it is.
But yeah, that'll just about do it. That's my life of sports.
But I cannot force.
If you guys enjoyed, please leave a like, comment, subscribe down below. I post every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's been the Storyteller, and there goes my life of sports and athletics. I got plenty more stories to tell. But until next time,
I know, right?
I'll see you, everybody.
Well, she told me that
bye.
She's a baby and she got